learning every day. An open mind can unlock any door. Maybe you just want to know the score. Log on. StKermit.com.
The pastor on the town green, it's like, listen, people, you have no idea who you're messing with right now. And don't even
the George Carlin's character in Dogma right now for some reason.
Yeah, like just don't go there. Like we've done a lot here already. I'm making people be very proactive. It's and people are starting to get uncomfortable. I'm like, yeah, because you need to be out in front. So when anything happens, you've already been there, and it's getting interesting, even in small little forgotten places in New England.
And so, folks, we are now on St. Kermit after the election. Now you're getting to see what it feels like. Glad to have everyone back here. It is the first day of December, and Tony and George have joined us again. Tony and I are here in the great Northeast.
And burn this broadcast after you view it.
Exactly. So, boys and girls, I'm going to start with the word that's likely to spark a little discussion. The catchword of the month has been normalization. Should we normalize the president-elect Donald Trump? George, you have a thought on that, perhaps?
I'm looking at myself on this Skype, and I feel like I'm in a hostage video. And, there's a Trump supporter behind me with a knife at my throat. But
how appropriate.
Normalization is just another way of saying, how can we accept racism and misogyny as the new normal? And it's a way of lowering the bar. As an ex-basketball ref, maybe a future basketball ref, smart coaches who played physical, full-court pressure defense were worried about foul trouble. They would come out and turn the dial up to 100 and challenge me to blow the whistle. Nobody likes seeing a referee blow his whistle every 5 seconds. It makes the game slow down. People get restless. I get antsy. I'm there to regulate the flow, not stop the flow. But they know that if after a while, I'll allow more clutching and grabbing than I would normally. I'll look at the film later and go, I allowed that crap? And then I realize guys are beating the living hell out of each other early on. So it's incumbent upon you to get control of the game early, get control of the game quickly, or otherwise you allow more than you normally do. I think the Trump people normalization campaign is like that. You allow Steve Bannon, you put Steve Bannon, who's basically a white supremacist under another name, in as your chief of staff, and Reince Priebus seems okay. Mike Pence is there, so, Jeff Sessions, who is the only I think the second candidate in 100 years to be refused a judgeship by a Republican Congress.
By a Republican Congress, yes.
There's more Democrats blocking him. Other Republicans,
you are way over the line.
Yeah. Other Republicans like, dude, and this was during the Reagan administration, right? Other Republicans like, dude, that's a bit much. I mean, really? So that tells you all you need to know about the guy. So you allow Sessions in, and next thing you know, you won't see the Baltimores and Clevelands and Fergusons being investigated. Next thing you know, voter suppression campaigns can get a wink, wink, and a nod. That's the problem with normalization. But I think the way to fight it is you don't look at the outrage. You don't look at, Donald Trump being an idiot over Hamilton. Let him. Everybody can take care of that. You got to keep your eye on the strategic targets and be tactical about hammering them.
Well, and one of the challenges we look at the people that Trump is surrounding himself with is that almost to a T, every person he's appointed has been the equivalent of your foul in the basketball game. Every one of them. I can't think of the only person out there, and again, this is not an endorsement, but you look at Reince Priebus and say, all right, he's been around, and maybe he fit that role, but you look at almost to a T, every person that Trump has thrown out there for a particular role is not suited for the particular role they've been nominated for.
Well, the funny thing is, Mitt Romney might be the most suitable, and everybody's looking at him going, really, dude? But I think Mitt is thinking, well, maybe I can be the moderating influence in the insane asylum. I don't know if I really don't know if that'll be the case, but my nightmare scenario with Trump wasn't necessarily what Trump himself would do or wouldn't do, because I think he knows he's pretty much in over his head. I don't think he really expected to win this election. This was a practical joke that just got completely out of hand for all of us.
Right.
But
like
I
a
really
funny or die thing. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, you saw him the day after when he had the meeting with Obama. He's sitting there like, he had that look on his face like, he was the guy who talked trash across the street like, yeah, I can whoop Mike Tyson's ass. Then you have one sparring session with a real fight and you're going, oh, this is harder than I thought. And you could see that he was really intimidated by a guy who didn't really respect him, but, was showing more class than he deserved. So my problem wasn't going to be Trump per se, but the fact that he would tap out of the job and basically allow certain reactionary Republicans to work a deal with him like, hey, look, I know it's a rough job. Why don't you take 5 as long as you let us do this, this, and this? For example, roll back civil rights protections, let us do this, let us do that, and you can do your thing. It was the people he was going to appoint and the way he would allow the mice to play, because this was just too much of a job for him while he focused on his couple pet projects. That was the scenario that made me break in a cold sweat. But
I'm going to just ask this thought here, because we talked about it a little bit early. I mean, you praised President Obama, and I think you're right. I mean, Obama did what he had to do when meeting with Trump the first time. But I mean, one of the things that we talked about earlier is that Obama's failure over the past 8 years to be a real fighter, to stand up to the obstructionism that the Republicans have put forth. And now we're looking at least 4 years of complete Republican rule. How do we react? How do those of us who are progressive thinkers react? Should we play along? Should we give him a chance, as some have said? I would argue no.
You're a 70-year-old man. You are what you are by that point. I mean, I don't see a bolt of lightning hitting Donald Trump in the ass and causing him to make a change of soul, as the old folks like to say.
No
Not
way.
just a change of heart, a change of soul. So he is what he is. What you see is what you're going to get. Well, the way that the job modulate him a little bit, I think he's more of a I do think he's a pragmatist and a deal maker. His end is power and more power. And, he will cut deals in order to enhance that, and he'll cut corners where he can. He's already thrown his supporters under the bus. There will be no wall. Big surprise. He's not going to prosecute Hillary. Really, especially if you're going to put David Petraeus in the Secretary of State's office. I think all of those things some of those things are going to go by the wayside. But yeah, short version, hell yeah, you fight. But Barack Obama's mindset, the way he was brought up and raised, I have a friend who knew him back in law school. He is what he is. And he even said himself, people treat him like a Rorschach test. You project what you want to on him. I do think he has some progressive tendencies, but he's about meeting people reasonably halfway and, he realizes that, democracy isn't getting everybody on board, it's getting the majority of the people and not pissing off the minority that's quote unquote left behind. Nevertheless, because of the way he was raised, his worldview and everything, he didn't understand the way you deal with bullies, to hit them in the mouth really, really hard. And even if you get bloodied a couple times, once the bully realizes this could be painful, trying to get milk money out of this guy, they move on to other targets. They develop a certain level of respect. And the Republicans, who we know now, documented fact, made it their business to make this man's life a living hell when our economy was this close to tanking on a global level. Right. That should have told you their intentions were far from noble. And I think to a certain extent we repay it in kind, but we shouldn't do it as unfocused as Republicans, and we shouldn't do it from the standpoint of saying no to say no. We should say no and provide a better alternative.
Tony.
I want to jump in where George is, because I want to both agree and disagree with his Obama characterization. And this comes from my professional life, being a parish minister, right? Mm-hmm. One of the things that I changed in my perspective about Obama as the years went on, and I originally thought of him very much like you just described, George. But then I went more and more into being a parish minister. And what I realized is that one of the things Obama was pretty successful at is being the minister, the head of the congregation, the point person in the system, right? So in a systems theory, the most effective leader is a self-differentiated leader. You're not going to let the stuff get to you. You're going to find a way to get the best you can. You're going to bring people in. You take a stand when you have to. You stay on your principles every time you have to stand on them. But you also learn very, very quickly the art of compromise, too. When to fight battles, when to not. And I wonder if everybody's got him a little wrong. I think there's a management style in there and a leadership style that's very self-differentiated. And does it have its weaknesses? Yes. And where I'd like to go stronger and agreeing is, I think people on the progressive end of the political spectrum, I think George was saying this earlier, we tend to be afraid to fight. And one of the most effective ways you fight is you use all the rules of the game or none of the rules of the game or whatever is the effective strategy. And you were talking about, the full court press, right? I was thinking there's a story a little while ago about a basketball team, a girls basketball team and their coach. I think it was in Southern California. And the school he had was full of girls on the team who were not athletes. A lot of them were smaller. A lot of them were not familiar with the game. And so he realized he didn't have dribblers, he didn't have shooters, he didn't have shot blockers. So all they did was full court press. He used the rules of the game, and all of a sudden they're beating teams who have far more athletic ability because they're throwing them off their game with the full court press, which, as you know, as a basketball ref, can be incredibly effective if you teach people how to press well. They can punch above their weight if they do it right.
Right.
And I think us on the liberal side, we are not full court pressing when we need to. We're not playing the rules. We're not playing the refs. We're not giving it our best game. I think we err on the side of, well, we're going to stay so dignified, we'll play by the rules, even when it's obvious everyone else is cheating. How do we hold back to wanting people to play by the rules, and yet the reality is, I think in anything, you have to win by the game by the rules that are in place before you can change the rules. And I think now it's time for that full court press of, it's time to win the game. What is the Frederick Douglass line?
Power
concedes nothing without a struggle, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so there's the struggle.
So I'll offer a couple of quick thoughts here. As for the struggle aspect, I've been playing the nattering nabob of negativity since November 9. I have a feeling if I were a Republican right now, I would be, essentially going for the throat. Screw the filibuster. In the sense, we should expect a world where Chuck Schumer could be, if Orrin Hatch allows him, to be a fairly powerful man in Washington, or he could be completely castrated and have 4 years of complete Republican domination. And again, why shouldn't the Republicans do that? Because they know that they should know, at least given the history, that the Democrats, the progressives, can't fight well enough. And that will, again, given 4 years of normalization of Republican rule, will we simply come to accept it? And one of our tasks has to be to not allow that to happen. There is an op-ed piece in the Globe today by Eric Fernstrom, a Republican strategist well known here in Massachusetts, who basically said, listen, can't we all get along? After you've had a good game, you shake hands and you move on. And my attitude is, screw that. I don't want to shake hands with the Republicans who are devoted to moving more wealth to the wealthy, to reducing the ability of people to get health care throughout the country. They think it's going to be better for them. I think at the end of the day, it's, I got mine, I'm going to protect mine, I don't care about the others. We have to care enough about ourselves, our neighbors, our communities at large, no matter their racial background, their religious background, their educational background. We have to fight for everybody, and we have to make it bigger than ourselves, and I think the Republicans are counting upon us not to be able to do that.
Well, allow me to point out two things. One, answering that analogy that that writer gave, I don't shake hands with a guy who went for my knees half the game.
Exactly.
I don't shake hands with people who try to take my teeth out. I might go visit you in the parking lot. At the very least, stay the hell away from me. So that's where the analogy falls apart. The refusal to even consider the Garland appointment is not by any sort of rule. That's inventing rules that go along.
Yeah.
And they did it shamelessly. And I think progressives, liberals, whatever you want to call the entity, I think Rick Perlstein talks about this in his books, especially Nixonland. We make the mistake of thinking the nobility of our cause is enough to carry it over the top and appeal to people. Hey, we're on the right side of history. Our view is morally correct. Yeah, whatever. That just isn't enough, and it won't be enough.
Right?
Yeah, no, you've got to absolutely step to the plate and explain why your policies are better. Demonstrate it in 10 words or less. I think the brilliance of Bill Clinton, I was reading an interesting article about the fall of the Clinton dynasty, I think it was termed, was that Bill always kept the common touch. Bill's like, hey, look, I'm one of those people that people think Hillary is not reaching, and people actually believe it. Because Bill Clinton, I read that he never made more than $35K a year as the governor of Arkansas, for example. Right. And where I'm going with this is you have to be able to sell a message. And with all due respect to you, Tony, the moral and spiritual superiority of your message is really secondary to a lot of the people you're trying to reach. I think that is a lesson, by the way, that wasn't just missed in this election. It's been missed in more elections than I can count. Rick Perlstein talked about how liberals blew this in the 60s, they blew it in the 70s, and Republicans moved right into the void. But I do believe in fighting. I believe in targeted fighting. I believe in picking your spots for maximum effect. And I think one thing you do, starting right off the bat, if I'm President Obama, and I was thinking about what you said, Tony, and you're making me rethink a few things about the management and leadership style of the president. And I think one thing he said that everybody missed, and it was something FDR said. One of FDR's supporters came and said, well, you said you're going to do X, Y, and Z. And FDR says, ma'am, you have to make me do it. I agree with you, but you got to make me do it. You've got to make it so uncomfortable politically that I have no choice and the opponents will see it. And the only time I saw President Obama really do that was with gay marriage. There was enough pressure where he could say, hey, I evolved on my position. I don't think his position ever changed, but politically he realized I'm not going to get smoked if I back this and I can score some brownie points. So he did.
That's exactly what I was talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm learning slowly, but I'm getting you, Tony. And,
if I throw something like, I'm going to try this great new religious education program, people can go, yeah, whatever. But if the Religious Education Committee is bugging everybody about it, then I say, hey, that's a good idea. We win.
Right. And I think first thing, if I was planning battle strategy, and I think Obama supposedly said, he told his staffers, I'm giving you 2 weeks to mourn the election. Then it's back to work. So that heartened me because he's thinking, okay, I'm going to say what I need to say publicly. But I'll be damned if I'm going to watch my legacy go down in ashes, because American history is rife with examples where things that we thought were set in stone got annihilated, in the name of expediency or fatigue. It might be liberal fatigue, if you will, outrage fatigue. That's our worst enemy. But the first thing the president can do is recess appoint Merrick Garland over the holidays.
Absolutely.
And let us have the fight.
Yeah, and make them. And the other thing is, the Republicans aren't exactly a united bunch. They're orgasmic right now, to be sure, because they got incredibly lucky with this election, and they know it, and they feel like we can ram through all this stuff. But Donald Trump's an opportunist of the highest order. Some of the stuff he's going to sign to it, some he won't. There's going to be divisions within the Republican Party on it. There's going to be Republican voters in certain precincts who goes, you're going to repeal and replace Obamacare. Oh, wait a minute. Not my Obamacare. I'm really liking this plan. What's going to happen to my diabetes medication if you repeal it? So it's not going to be as easy as all get out. And there's going to be fracture lines. There's going to be fissures. That's when you push, you prod, you find the places, you apply the pressure, and you make things crack. And for the love of God, people, get off your asses and start working on these midterm elections for a change.
I want to throw one thing in there.
One
Maybe
more
that's
thing.
what we'll leave and come back
Yes,
to next
yes.
time is that, yeah, you know, I think a lot of people don't realize, obviously, that I think they've been had, right? So, yeah, I want to get rid of Obamacare except for my diabetes medicine. If my insulin goes, oh, wait, what are you talking about? And that's going to happen. And what's going to happen next is not going to be, oh, that Trump, he pulled the wool over eyes. What's going to happen next is Trump's going to be like, you'd have insulin medication if it wasn't for those blacks and Muslims and immigrants. That's what I'm afraid of.
Right. So on that note, we could go on for a long, long time, and we will, but we're going to try to break it up. So we will come back in a week or two, and we'll begin to look at some of the things we actually can do as part of this fight that's ahead of us, because we're going to have to find those fissures. We're going to have to take advantage of the times when the Republicans aren't united. The thing I'm scared about is that they'll be hard to find, and we'll have to be ready.
By the way, let me point out one thing while we're talking about this. It's incumbent upon all of us to send a message to the congressional leaders on the Democratic side, because this is where you pull a page out of the Tea Party handbook. Yep. If Congressman X goes, well, you know, we're gonna try to work with it. It's like, dude, you really like your job? No,
Yes.
You're fighting. Because there's too many people who are already starting to cave in like wet cardboard. That cannot be allowed.
Agreed. We will pick up there. Gentlemen, great to see you. I'm glad we're doing this. It's cathartic, if nothing else.
Thank you both.
All right. We'll see everyone soon. Bye.
Bye, y'all. It's been real.